Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizziefaye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and welcome to day one of the Little House Readathon, the first annual, I hope. This readathon will last 4 days from today through February 10th, and I am planning to read one short book every day, and then also I'm going to get started today with my longer books as well as my audiobook. All of those I talked about yesterday, so if you didn't see yesterday's video, be sure to check that out. And it also is the first day of Tome Topple, so I am putting aside most everything that I'm reading that is unrelated to Laura Ingalls Wilder. I worked really hard yesterday to finish up a couple of audiobooks, and I'm putting everything else on hold except for my devotional books, and I'm going to start one tome in my car that I have on CD, and that is Shell Game by Ridley Pearson. But other than that, I am only going to be reading Laura Ingalls Wilder related books for the next 4 days. And each day here on my channel, I want to bring you some sort of Laura Ingalls Wilder related content. So for today's video, I'm going to show you a video that I filmed a few days ago. I had originally planned to upload this one a few days before the readathon started, just to give you some ideas for books that you might want to read, but I didn't get it edited until yesterday, so I'm going to post it here in this video. And basically what I'm showing you in this video are books that have been inspired by Laura Ingalls Wilder. There's books about her ancestors, there's books that just simply have a title that is a parody of Little House in some way, and you'll see what I mean when you get through the video. But that's what today's video is about, and then tomorrow I will be back with more Laura Ingalls Wilder related content. Be sure you post something on Instagram today. Whatever you want to post, just help get the word out about this readathon and let me know what you're reading. So let's go now to the rest of the video. Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizziefaye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and today I've got another Laura Ingalls Wilder inspired video for you. Now, I'm sure by now you have heard that I'm hosting a 4-day Laura Ingalls Wilder readathon from February 7th to February 10th, and if you haven't heard, that's the announcement. And in case you're wondering why those particular dates, then I will refer you back to my announcement video, which I will leave a link for in the description below. But for today, since I've already shown you the majority of the Laura Ingalls Wilder books that are on my shelves, I have checked out a few from the library, and I'd like to show you some of the Laura Ingalls Wilder inspired books that are related to her ancestors, and also books that are inspired just because of Little House. There are several books with word parodies in the titles. There are books that have been inspired by Laura Ingalls Wilder and her life, or people who have been touched by her in some way. And so I have a collection of those on my shelves, and again, I have checked out a few things from the library. So let's get started. Now, the main sets of books that were inspired by her are sets of children's books that have been written about Laura's ancestors. Now, I don't know how much of this is accurate. I'm sure that enough research was done to be as historically accurate as possible, and then things were embellished. I'm sure they used as much as they could in the way of diary entries or things that were passed down from Laura's ancestors. But there are sets of books about Laura's mother Caroline and her childhood, Caroline's mother Charlotte and her childhood, and Charlotte's mother Martha and her childhood. Now, Martha grew up in Scotland, and since I haven't read the books, I don't know exactly when she immigrated to the United States. But let's just take a look at those books and a little bit about them, because some of you might want to read some of these books for the readathon. I know I have not read any of these books yet, and I want to, but since I have the Rose books on my shelf, which are the books that are about Laura's daughter, I will probably read the Rose books before I get to the Martha, Charlotte, and Caroline books. However, I was going through my library and ordering the books so that I could show them to you, and since these have been out for a while, a few of them have disappeared from the library shelves, so I don't have every single one to show you. Thankfully, I have picked up a few at book sales, and at least 3 of the books that I had on my shelf were ones that the library didn't have. So I was glad that I didn't just have duplicates from the library, but I actually can show you some of the books that I wouldn't have otherwise if I hadn't collected them. Eventually, I hope to collect all of them. As far as I know, these are out of print at this point. I think I did notice a newer edition from one of these series, and maybe they are in the process of republishing them in newer editions. That would be wonderful. But anyway, what I have to show you are the older original editions. They started publishing them in the 90s, and let's just take a look at them. Now, I probably would have started with Laura and worked my way back, but a couple of you who have watched my other Laura videos talked about starting with Martha and working your way all the way down to the Rose books. And I think that's a great idea. But like I said, I'm still going to probably read the Rose books because that's what I own. But eventually, I think I will start back with Martha and read those for the first time, and then perhaps reread the Laura books and the Rose books at that point. I don't know. I think it would be fun to just have a whole year of Laura and just start at the beginning and read all the children's books and read as many biographies as I could. You know, all of that just sounds like that would be super fun. But for now, I don't have that luxury because I'm in 3 book clubs and I have a mountain of books to read for other readathons and things like that. But I do want to show you these books because some of you might still be undecided about what you want to read, or you might want to read these in the future. I'm sure most of you by now know that these exist, but maybe you haven't actually seen them. So let's take a look. So the first Martha book is Little House in the Highlands. This takes place when Martha was age 6. It was originally published in 1999, and it is set in Scotland. So that's about all I know of it so far. It is written by Melissa Wiley. Now, the interesting thing is that all of these books that are written about Laura's ancestors have authors with names that all start in W-I. I don't think that was an accident. I'm sure that these women all have other names, and it was a publishing decision to write under W-I names so that they could all be on the shelves right next to the Laura Ingalls Wilder books, and that makes perfect sense. The next Martha book is one that I happen to have on my shelves, The Far Side of the Loch by Melissa Wiley. This is written about Martha at age 7, and it was originally published in the year 2000. I believe I found this copy at a library book sale, and it is in beautiful condition. It's not an ex-library copy, and thankfully I had this because this is one of the books that none of the libraries in our library co-op had, so I was glad that I had it on my shelf. The next Martha book is called Down to the Bonnie Glen, also by Melissa Wiley, and this was published in the year 2001. I believe this takes Martha on into her teen years, maybe early adolescence, and it looks really cute. There is even a man with a kilt on the front. I don't know really much about it other than that, but this is the 3rd book in the Martha series. And the last and final book in the Martha series is called Beyond the Heather Hills, also by Melissa Wiley. It was published in 2003, and according to the flap in this book, it looks like that Martha is going to visit her married sister in Perth. So this is the last of the books about Martha as a child. Of course, Martha is Charlotte's mother, so we will still be able to see her continuing story in the Charlotte books. So this is the first Charlotte book, Little House by Boston Bay. It was published in 1999 by Melissa Wiley. It is set in 1814 when Charlotte was 5 years old, and by the title I'm going to assume that it's set in Boston. I don't really know anything about this one other than that. The second Charlotte book is On Tide Mill Lane by Melissa Wiley. This was published in 2001. The flap doesn't say specifically when this book is set, but I'm going to assume that it was sometime after 1814. It says that Charlotte is living in Roxbury, and other than that, I don't know anything about it, but this is book number 2 in the Charlotte series. My library did not have books 3 or 4 in the Charlotte series, and I happen to have a copy of book 3, but it doesn't have a dust jacket. So I'm going to show you a picture of the dust jacket cover, which is The Road from Roxbury. It says that this book was set after the War of 1812, which ended in 1815. So that's your basic time frame there. It was published in 2002, and this is book number 3 in the Charlotte series. Now, book number 4, Across the Pudding Pudding Stone Dam is when Charlotte is 11, and it is proving to be a very difficult book to find for any reasonable amount of money. I even checked on eBay to see if I could get a used copy, and I think the least expensive one was $50, and it goes up from there. So apparently that is a difficult book to get your hands on. I certainly wish that my library had an old copy of it, but they don't. So at some point I'm going to check into the Little House bookstores that they have at the different home sites that Laura grew up in and see if any of those still have any copies. If they don't, then hopefully I'll find one somewhere at a used book sale or a library book sale or something. But for now, I'm not going to be able to read that fourth book, and I even checked to see if I could get it on ebook, and I don't even think it was available there. So I don't know. At least I have 3 of the books, and hopefully one of these days I'll be able to get my hands on book 4, which is Across the Pudding Stone Dam. Let's move on to the Caroline books. The first Caroline book is called Little House in Brookfield, and that's Brookfield, Wisconsin. This starts out with Caroline at age 5. And of course her mother was Charlotte, so we'll get the continuing story of Charlotte here in this series. There are more in this series than there are in the Charlotte and Martha years. This series has 7 books and 2 different authors. So the first few books are written by Maria D. Wilkes. Again, there's that W.I. name. This was published originally in 1996, so this series came out before the Charlotte and Martha years, probably because we have more information about Caroline, and then it just went from there. I know that there's probably not of real true life stuff that we could get from the daily life of young Charlotte or Martha, but just the idea of it I think is wonderful. So anyway, I'm excited that these books exist, and I'm really excited to eventually at some point get to read them. So anyway, this is book number 1 in the Caroline series. Book 2 in the Caroline series is Little Town at the Crossroads. It takes place when Caroline was 6 years old, and it's centered around Independence Day. It says that this book, and maybe this whole series, was based on letters that were found that were either written by Caroline or written by someone to her. I don't know. They were able to get a lot of this story and information from old letters, which I think is amazing. I tend to want to save old letters like that are important and that have important family history in them, and I'm so glad that I'm not the only one that does that. Not that we'll ever write a book about my family, but I think it is just an important part of family history to save old letters. I mean, not just greeting cards that are signed, but things that actually have good information about what's happening in the lives of people. In fact, I have, in going through all of my mom's paper items, I have not thrown away any of the letters that she received, and I am thinking about sending some of those back to the families of people who wrote them to her. I think that they, I don't know that everyone would appreciate it, but I think that there are some people out there who would probably appreciate that history of their family and the people who wrote the letters, especially in my own extended family. I couldn't get a copy of book 3 in the Caroline series. It's called Little Clearing in the Woods. It was published in 1998, and it's set in the 1800s. I have a feeling that that is describing a home site where Caroline lived. And other than that, I don't know anything about it. I hope that I will be able to find that book at some point. I do own a few of the Caroline books, but they are the later ones. I was able to get a copy of book 4 in the Caroline series from the library. It's called On Top of Concord Hill. And in my notes, I wrote that Caroline is 9 in this book. This also is the last book that was written by Maria D. Wilkes. The rest of the series, the last 3, I do own, and they are written by Celia Wilkins. So in this book, book 5, Across the Rolling River, is where Caroline meets Charles, and there are Caroline and Charles on the cover. Charles with his fiddle, which I think is awesome. I don't know exactly what age she was when she met Charles, but I think this would be a fun story to read. Incidentally, I mentioned in one of my other videos that Rose, Laura's daughter, wrote a book about Charles and Caroline. It was originally called Let the Hurricane Roar, and then eventually the names were changed to David and Molly, and it's called Young Pioneers, but the story is about Charles and Caroline. Little City by the Lake takes place when Caroline is 15 and she goes to Milwaukee to a female college. And that looks like that's going to be a big adventure for her. So this is book number 6. And the last book in the Caroline series, called A Little House of Their Own. I think this book covers most of the courtship of Caroline and Charles. Maybe they'll get married in this book and set off on their own. I'm not really sure how far it goes. But this is the last of the Caroline years, written by Celia Wilkins, and it looks really sweet. So I have another short stack of books. Almost all of these are books that I have plucked from my own shelves. I've picked these up here and there at library book sales because they have titles or something about them was inspired by either the Little House books or by Laura Ingalls Wilder or something. So I want to show you these, and anything that I'm showing you here is also fair game for the Laura Ingalls Wilder Readathon. Now, even if you've already got your books picked for this year, I'm planning to do this every year. So even if you don't get around to reading another Laura Ingalls Wilder book until this time next year, these are all books that might interest you that you could certainly read during this time frame. Now, not all of them are about Laura Ingalls Wilder. Some of them are not about her at all, but you'll see what I mean when I show you the titles. For example, this is a book that I read several years ago. It's a middle grade book, and of course it is certainly inspired by Little House on the Prairie. It's called Little Blog on the Prairie by Kathleen David Bell. This is about a girl whose mother is a big fan of Little House on the Prairie, and she signs her family up to go to a camp where they are going to be living as if they were in the 1800s, where they are living like they are out on the prairie and they are having to make do with just the things that they would have had back then. And of course this teenager has no interest in this at all, because of course we live in the day and age where teenagers have to be chained to their phones and electronics, and of course none of that is allowed at this camp. So she sneaks out at night and finds where the phones are hidden and starts sending text messages to her friend. Well, her friend thinks they're so interesting that she starts blogging them, and it just becomes this whole thing. So that by the time her parents have found out, this blog is like popular and everybody wants to know more about what's going on, and of course she meets a boy and all of that. So I think it's really a cute story, and I wouldn't have picked it up otherwise if it hadn't had this name, if it hadn't had this prairie costume on the front, and I think it's definitely a fun book. Now I have another book I checked out from the library, although I do want to find my own copy of this, and I haven't read it yet, but I think this is going to have some parallels to the last book. This is called Laura Ingalls is Ruining My Life. It's by Shelley Tugas. This book is about a girl whose family moves to Walnut Grove because her mother is a big fan of Laura Ingalls Wilder. She wants to write a book, and she feels like she'll be inspired if they can just be immersed in that setting. And so it goes from there. I have not read it, but this is definitely something on my future TBR. I think it sounds really fun. So after discovering the book Little Blog on the Prairie, I started noticing a few other books with Little House or Prairie in the title, and they just kind of pulled me in. So I want to show you some of these. Again, not all of them have anything to do with Little House, but they just made me get that feeling because of the title. So here we have Little House on the Freeway. This is a Christian book, nonfiction, about just how life has gotten too fast, how we're living in the fast lane, and I just like the play on words of the title. In fact, I picked up another edition of this at a recent book sale. I've had this for quite a while, and I didn't remember the exact title of it until recently. I was at another library book sale, and I picked up another book that I knew wasn't exactly the same cover, but I thought it might be the same book, and it is. It's just a newer edition of the same book. But I didn't want to pass up any book that had Little House in the title, so now I have both of them, and we'll see. I will at least read one or the other and perhaps pass the other one on to somebody. I think I have this book in my TBR jar, so at some point when I ever draw it out, then I'll read it. Now these books just have a couple of words in the title that pulled me in. This is Woman of the Prairie by Barbara Oakes. I believe this is a self-published book about a woman in South Dakota. So again, something I'm very interested in. So here is a picture of Barbara Oakes. It says she grew up in Redfield, South Dakota. There are also some illustrations in here by Dave Rambo, who is also a South Dakota native from Sturgis. And I picked this up somewhere here in Florida, but it is a South Dakota book. It even has a sticker that says South Dakota made. And then I have this one. I almost didn't even show this one, but I specifically picked this up because of the title. It has the word house in it, and even though it's not a house on the prairie or even a little house, actually it does look like it's a little house, but it's called The Outermost House, A Year of Life on the Great Beach of Cape Cod by Henry Beston. And that's what the cover looks like. So because I'm just drawn in by anything that says house, I picked it up. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with Laura Ingalls Wilder, but it's just that feel of being in a little house somewhere out in a remote area, and I picked it up. Then the last one I want to show you is a memoir of Melissa Gilbert called Prairie Tale. So this is her story of life on the set of Little House on the Prairie, and I have not read this. I picked this up somewhere at a book sale, and I am really looking forward to getting to this one. So this was published in 2009, so it's a little over 10 years old, and I just think it's going to be a really fun book to look at. I've sort of fallen into a rabbit hole of watching some YouTube videos of Little House interviews with the cast and reunion shows and things like that. In fact, a couple of you were telling me about some videos that I need to watch. There was one with Dean Butler, who played Almanzo. And thank you, Colleen. She corrected me because I think I was saying Almanzo. Some people say Almanzo, and I believe it is Almanzo. I don't know, for some reason that's hard to say, because it feels like it should be Almanzo, much like people say Frederick Bachman when it's really Frederick Backman. It just seems weird to say it. But anyway, thank you, Colleen, for correcting me. I don't ever mind being corrected by you guys if you're absolutely sure that I'm doing something wrong. But just, you know, back it up with something. I am a really big stickler for trying to pronounce names correctly, and so I appreciate being corrected. But just know I will probably be looking that up and backing it up, because I like to be able to back it up with something that's absolutely certain, and like with authors' names and stuff like that. So I never did get that video done. One of these days I'm going to do a video about pronouncing authors' names correctly, but I always want to make sure that I have a video to back up my claims and that it's not just what I think, you know, or how I like to say something. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. So anyway, that is all I have on my shelf of books that are inspired by Laura Ingalls Wilder or Little House. I do have a few more Laura videos coming up. So I hope that you were planning on joining us. Be sure you go on my Goodreads group, Lizziefaye's Comfy Corner, and let us know what you're reading and what you plan to read. And also just tell us how Laura Ingalls Wilder has touched you. I have a whole separate thread for that. And if you've had any experiences visiting any of her home sites or anything like that, then I would love for you to share in that forum on my Goodreads group. So let me know in the comments if you're planning to participate and what you're planning to read. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you are having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.